Namaskar. Well, friends, let me heartily welcome you all to Bhim Bhashya, my audio video podcast series of 54 short speeches on Dr. Baba Sahab Ambedkar, unraveling as many as 25 different dimensions of his multifaceted genius. Friends, this podcast series is focused on Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, his thoughts, his actions, his philosophy, and above all, his vision for the whole country. This is what this podcast series is all about. Friends, let's continue our discussion of Dr. Ambedkar as a political strategist, part 3. In this episode 17, I'm going to talk about Gandhi Ji's fast unto death against Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar and the temporary truce that was achieved in terms of the Pune Pact of 1932. Nearly 10 months after the second roundtable conference, the British Prime Minister announced the much awaited communal award on August 16, 1932. Under the communal award, the British government had granted separate electorates to untouchables and offered them as many as 78 seats in the legislature. This came as a big shocker to Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was taken aback because in the intervening period from the end of the second roundtable conference up to the announcement of the communal award, during these 10 months, Mahatma Gandhi had warned the British government. He had written a letter to the British government, and I quote from the letter of Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "I respectfully inform His Majesty's government that in the event of their decision creating separate electorates for the untouchables, I must fast unto death." Unquote. Well, friends, it may be recalled that Mahatma Gandhi had committed in writing that the final decision given by the British Prime Minister would be acceptable to him. Yet, when the communal award provided for separate electorates for the untouchables, Gandhi Ji went back on his words and simply refused to accept the verdict given by the British Prime Minister and announced an indefinite fast unto death if the separate electorates for untouchables were not withdrawn. How ironical was this? Was this an emotional blackmail? Yes, but for commoners like you and me, not for Mahatmas. Gandhi Ji announced fast unto death with effect from September 20th, 1932, in opposition of the communal award, and this shook the whole country. Gandhi Ji was flooded with messages, appeals were made, prayers were offered. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety all around because the life of a Mahatma was at stake. In order to save the life of Mahatma, it was necessary to modify the communal award announced by the Prime Minister, British Prime Minister, and that required the approval of Dr. Baba Sahab Ambedkar, who was the one who had defended and acquired those rights for the untouchables in our country. Naturally, all eyes then turned to Dr. Baba Sahab Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar had now been recognized as an undisputed leader of the untouchables or the entire depressed classes. And he became the center of attention for the whole country. Immediately, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya announced his intention to hold a conference in Mumbai on 19 September 1932 to resolve the deadlock with the help of Dr. Baba Sahab Ambedkar. At the same time, a vicious campaign was launched against Dr. Ambedkar, calling him a monster, a traitor, and a British stooge. Dr. Ambedkar remained calm and quiet. On the eve of the conference, Dr. Ambedkar gave an interview and issued two statements to the press. In the first statement to the press, Dr. Ambedkar said, and I quote, I am willing to consider everything, though I am not willing to allow the rights of the depressed classes to be curtailed in any way, unquote. In his second statement to the press, Dr. Ambedkar's tone was highly acerbic. And I quote again, he said, please note this, very important. He said, it would have been justifiable if Mr. Gandhi had resorted to this extreme step for obtaining independence for the country, unquote. He said sharply, and I quote again, if separate electorates to Mohammedans and Sikhs do not split the nation, why would the Hindu society be split if the depressed classes are given separate electorates, unquote. Finally, in a caustic note, Dr. Ambedkar said, and I quote again, Mahatma is not an immortal person, nor is Congress immortal. Mahatmas have come and Mahatmas have gone, but the untouchables have remained where they were, unquote. The conference proposed by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya was held on 19 September 1932 in a charged atmosphere. The chair, Madan Mohan Malviya, requested Dr. Ambedkar to speak first. Dr. Ambedkar, as the opening speaker, said, and I quote, Gandhi Ji ought to have proposed an alternative scheme before going on the fast unto death. The conference was immediately adjourned. Later, Gandhi Ji conveyed that he had no personal objection to the reservation of seats for the depressed classes. Accordingly, the conference was reconvened the next day, that is on September 20th, 1932, the day when Mahatma Gandhi's fast unto death began. This time, Dr. Ambedkar took everybody by surprise when he said, and I quote, it has fallen to my lot to be the villain of the piece. But I tell you, I shall not deter from my pious duty and betray the just and legitimate interests of my people, even if you hang me to the nearest lamppost in the street, unquote. You better appeal, he said. You better appeal, Mr. Gandhi, to postpone the fast unto death for a week and then seek solution of the problem, unquote. When Congress Hindu leaders, they recovered from the shock, Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru quickly formulated a scheme of primary and secondary elections for the reserved seats. According to the scheme, according to the proposal that he put forth, for every designated seat of depressed classes, the depressed classes themselves were to select a panel of 3 candidates. And then, from among those 3 candidates, one candidate was to be selected by the joint electorate of the caste Hindus and the depressed classes. Dr. Ambedkar accepted this proposal, but demanded a much larger number of reserved seats for the depressed classes. Congress leaders accepted his suggestion. In the evening of September 22, 1932, Dr. Ambedkar, accompanied by Jaikar, Barrister Jaikar, Birla, and Raj Gopalachari, they went to Yerwada jail to meet Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi Ji was laying on a white iron cot with Sardar Patel and Sarojini Naidu sitting beside him. It was the 3rd day of his fast. Gandhi Ji was weak. He lay in his bed. Sapru narrated the whole story to Gandhi Ji. Then Dr. Ambedkar said in a soft voice, Mahatma Ji, you have been very unfair to us. Gandhi Ji replied, it has always my lot to appear to be unfair. I cannot help it. Dr. Ambedkar explained the prevailing situation in his own viewpoints. His sober and yet earnest tone had the intended desired effect on Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhiji said, you have my fullest sympathy. I am with you, doctor, in most of the things that you say. But you say you are interested in my life? Dr. Ambedkar said, yes, Mahatma Ji, in the hope that if you would devote solely to the cause of my people, you would become our hero too, said Dr. Ambedkar. Gandhi then said, well then, if it is so, then you know what you have got to do to save it. Do it and save my life. In that emotionally charged atmosphere, Mahatma Gandhi said, and I quote, you are an untouchable by birth. I am by adoption. We must be one and indivisible. Mahatma Gandhi said, I'm prepared to give my life to avert the disruption of the Hindu community. Unquote. Dr. Ambedkar accepted Gandhiji's suggestion, and the leaders of both sides started discussion for sorting out all the relevant details of the agreement. But after several hours of discussion, 2 contentious issues could not be settled. So the matter was again referred to Mahatma Gandhi. Dr. Ambedkar was still not prepared to give in. Finally, one of Dr. Ambedkar's respected colleague, Shri M.C. Raja, he persuaded Dr. Ambedkar to compromise. Dr. Ambedkar again met Gandhiji at 9 o'clock in the late evening that night. Gandhiji was hardly able to speak. His voice had now sunk to a whisper. Gandhiji implored Ambedkar to, and I quote, give a last chance to Hinduism to make voluntary reparation for its sinful past. Together, Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Ambedkar finally reached a mutual agreement. The final agreement was drafted in no time. Depressed classes were granted 48 seats in the provincial assemblies and 10% of the seats of Hindus from British India in Central Assembly. The agreement was signed in the evening of September 24th, 1932, and it went down in the history as the famous Pune Pact of 1932. The next day, that is September 25th, 1932, a meeting was held in Mumbai, again chaired by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. In his speech, in a thunderous applause, Dr. Ambedkar said, and I quote, "No man, no man was ever placed in such a dilemma that he was. There was the life of the greatest man of India to be saved, and on the other hand, the interest of the downtrodden community were to be safeguarded." Unquote. That day evening, prayers were offered in the Yerwada jail, Pune. Mahatma Gandhi broke his fast amidst a gathering of around 200 followers and admirers. And this included, interestingly, Rabindranath Tagore, Sarojini Naidu, Sardar Patel, and Swarup Rani Nehru, that is, wife of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And apparently, the little girl who handed over a glass of orange juice to Gandhi Ji to break the fast was none other than the young girl of 15 at that time, Priyadarshini Indira Gandhi. Well, a compromise was reached between Gandhi Ji and Dr. Ambedkar through the Pune Pact. The Pune Pact reshaped India's electoral system and the electoral method by which the reserved constituencies were defined. Some experts have argued that Gandhiji skewed the election method, which made the election of a reserved candidate dependent upon the dominant caste vote, which was defeating the very purpose for which such representation was secured. It is believed that the Pune Pact laid the foundation of Dr. Ambedkar's political defeats in the future, that we will see in the later episodes. My own view is that, intellectually speaking, Dr. Ambedkar completely defeated Mahatma Gandhi, but politician in Mahatma Gandhi defeated Dr. Ambedkar politically. Maybe that is why, much later in 1945, Dr. Ambedkar called Gandhiji half Mahatma and half politician. Well, friends, we can conclude this session here. But before I go, let me remind you that if you like this podcast series, do like it, do share it, and do subscribe to it. So long, friends, until we meet again real soon. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.